All right. There he is, Matt Verderame. How you doing, my man? Good morning, sir.
I am good. More importantly, how are you with all the weather that's headed toward Florida?
Yeah, we've been getting some rain and some wind. Sean, our producer, is a little flooded more over in Miami Gardens. So we're on the East Coast. We're not expecting nearly as bad as our friends on the West Coast. They're going to get absolutely pounded. But I would imagine that this afternoon and this evening we're going to get a crap ton of rain and some gusts and things like that. But so far we're all right. Matt, the people I worry about now is our friends in Naples and Marco Island and leading up to St. Petersburg, up to Tampa, and the west coast of Florida is the one that's really. I mean, they say 16-foot surge is coming to Naples. I mean that's criminal, dude. That's devastating stuff that's coming. So prayers to our people in the West Coast.
Yes.
We're going to go through some stuff, but nothing like our friends in the West Coast, man. It's and these storms, dude. They're bringing more and more rain because of the climate change and everything.
Yes.
Like it's just the heat up in the air is just building way more humidity. So that's why we're seeing flash floods everywhere, man. I was at Heat Media Day, and we have a rookie named Orlando Robinson. So and you're around athletes, so you know how it is. Most of these athletes, not all of them, but most of them live in life with blinders.
Yeah.
They don't really watch everything that's going on. And so the kid's from Vegas. Okay. I'm not from Vegas. You're not from Vegas. But I bet you saw the flash flooding inside the Vegas Strip in the hotels, right?
Yeah.
All right. He didn't see that. He didn't know about that. So we played it for him in the middle of the interview. He was like, holy crap, I didn't know. I called my mom, and she's like, oh, no, everything's fine. We're all good. And I go, your mom didn't ever tell you about the flash floods in Vegas? And he goes, no, man, I had no idea. So it's just, it's crazy stuff. All right. What is crazy? So Sunday, you were tweeting something out in the middle of the Colts game or something. I'm like, dude, relax. You're playing the Colts.
You could see it coming. You could see it coming. It was one of those games. Like, if you're a fan of any NFL team, okay, there are times that by like the end of the first quarter, you just know. You're like, this game is going to be a crap fest all the way through. And like the Chiefs game, look, we'll get to the Dolphins and Bills and frankly, it was much more entertaining. But I mean,
no, but this is great. There's a lot of storylines to all this. Keep going.
The Chiefs, like, very rarely is a game decided by a kicker. If the Chiefs have Harrison Butker, they win that game by 10 points. It's not even a problem. But they don't have Harrison Butker because he's got a sprained ankle. So they have Matt Amendola, why they signed Matt Amendola, who kicked atrociously last year for the Jets, is beyond me. They bring him in. He was fine against the Chargers. Well, this week, misses a 34-yard field goal, misses an extra point. Because he missed the extra point on their first touchdown of the game, they ran a fake field goal. It would have been a 41-yard attempt on 4th and 7. That it was doomed to fail the second they snapped the ball. Why, if you're going to do that, like, why don't you just leave Mahomes out on the field in 4th and 7? Like, let him go out there and handle it. But not that he was great on Sunday, but he was a hell of a lot better than anybody at special teams. And then to top it all off, Sky Moore, who's actually done a really nice job returning punts this year, muffs a punt at his own 4-yard line, which my thing is, look, muffs happen. Why are you fielding the ball at the 4-yard line? Which is a coaching point that they've never apparently talked. Because McCall Hardman used to do this for years and years and years. And then they're running kicks out of the end zone. They have Chris Jones take a personal foul late in the game. They would have won despite all of this if Chris Jones doesn't get called for unsportsmanlike conduct for talking to Matt Ryan on 4th and 13. It was anything you could imagine that they could do to beat themselves for 60 solid minutes. They did it. Like, if it came out that they bet on the Colts money line before the game, you'd be like, okay, that makes more sense. I mean, that's what it looked like. It was unbelievable. So they now are 2-1.
It was just entertaining following you on Twitter on it. That's
like, how is this? And they still almost won. By like, anyone who thinks like the Colts are good, go watch that game and try to come away with it. The Colts are brutal.
Yeah,
brutal. Jonathan Taylor couldn't do anything. Matt Ryan was terrible. The offensive line was terrible. The Chiefs just donated the game. It was one of the most ridiculous losses I've ever seen them have under Andy Reid.
Now, let's get to the storyline. The exchange between Bieniemy and Mahomes, and then Mahomes downplayed it. Um, so you saw, what everybody else saw and
Yep.
all that stuff. Now, here's the question the layer that I had on top of that I got to ask you is this what we see behind? Is this the problem maybe behind the scenes why Bieniemy never gets a job? Because now I'm seeing your disagreement with your quarterback, and
Right.
Mahomes, obviously the champ that he is, he's not going to really reveal what the hell if there's any difference between those two. But
Right.
I start to see that, and then I see the fact that every time he goes out for interviews, and every one of us talks about like, okay, every other assistant of his gets a damn job.
Why isn't he getting the job?
Why isn't he getting a job? Because, dude, I mean, Andy Reid's tree is freaking fruitful.
Yes.
It's not like the Belichick rotten ass tree, dude.
No.
Like this one produces.
It
So
does.
what happens? And then you see this exchange, and you just wonder, is there more behind the scenes that we don't know? That's what came to me. Not so much their difference, not so much all that. I think that'll be all water under the bridge. But I just wonder the deeper part of it for Bieniemy, because it's a strange story that he doesn't get a job.
Yeah, look, I think you're right, by the way. Like, their disagreement at halftime, I don't think matters. Like, I mean, coaches and players disagree all the time. And it really, truly, if you watch the clip, it really was not like heated. It was just them arguing. But Mahomes just wanted to basically try to go for it at the end of the half. And the Chiefs were so bad the first half of the game, they're like, no, let's just sit on it and go in the locker room. Which, quite honestly, I actually agreed with. In that moment, they were so horrific the first half of the game. But to your point, so I've heard people say, well, it's because Andy calls the plays and everybody knows that, which is true. He does call the plays. But that makes no sense to me because Matt Nagy's gotten jobs, right? And Doug Peterson got a job, and none of them called plays in Kansas City either. Okay. So that argument holds no water. I throw that out. There's also been talk in league circles that, look, some of this is because of his history and stuff that happened in Boulder when he was at Colorado, and that's a problematic situation. I think there's some truth to that. I think the bigger truth, though, with Bieniemy is, look, I do believe that this is not breaking news, but he's a very intense individual. I think for some players, that's great, and that's what they need. Like Travis Kelce loves Eric Bieniemy because of that. Some guys, they don't jive with that. And I think with Bieniemy, like a guy like Nathaniel Hackett, forget skin color for a second, but I think like Hackett, he's like bubbly and he's got a million ideas. And he's excitable and he's a great guy to like trot out because he's never going to have a moment in a press conference where he's like really like in your face. Bieniemy is, if you're going to hire Eric Bieniemy, you have to take the good and the bad. And what I mean by that is, I think Eric Bieniemy is a very good coach. I really do. And I think he should have a job. I also think he is the kind of person that he is an acquired taste for some people because of how in your face he can be. And I think some owners, who, let's face it, are old guard in most cases, are very put off by that. They don't want that. They want the guy who's going to go out there and be very cookie cutter.
Dude, we just went through it. Just went through it.
Yeah.
We went from Flores to the guy that you're talking about that players now need to relate to in Mike McDaniel.
I think with Bieniemy,
and Flores was that guy that he was, edgy, that he was old school.
He's rough and he's gruff. And look, I personally, I like that in a coach, but I'm not a team owner. Okay. And I think too, look, it all depends too, like the tenor of your team and the leaders of your team and what do they relate to better. I think with Bieniemy, it's the stuff in his background from Boulder. And it's also, I think some people, again, and by some people, I mean owners in the NFL, look at his general persona, and I think they worry, like, are they going to clash? Are they going to be, now you want to throw the racism component in there. That's fine. I'm here to hear that as well. But I think a lot of it is his personality, I think, scares some people off. I don't think it should. I really think he'd be a very good head coach. Because the one argument I hate, like I said at the top, is when people say, well, he doesn't call plays. Well, nobody who's come out of Kansas City calls plays. Andy Reid runs that organization. Like, let's just be honest about it. And I think Bieniemy gets unfairly penalized for some of the stuff that people bring up.
Yeah. And by the way, McDaniel was calling the running plays in the last year.
Right.
But he wasn't really calling offensive plays for years in San Francisco. No, it was the last year where he was like really like Shanahan would go, I want a running play here. What do you want to do, Mike? And so then Mike tells him, all right, I want to do this because he was the run game coordinator. You know what I mean? So, and how's it working out for him now? Pretty good, right? So, I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's one of those that if you're around the guy long enough and you're doing it, you're kind of calling your own plays in the middle of the game as it is. Because even when the coach is calling a play, you probably in your headset are going, I might have called this one instead, and then you would have seen what would have happened and all those kind of things. So McDaniel talks about it all the time, how he was preparing for this job constantly by doing his job, and then kind of living through Shanahan and watching him do his job. So it's all the same thing. All right, so let's move over to those red hot Miami Dolphins, who are now 3-0 after the win against the Bills.
Yep.
Are you a believer yet in the Dolphins? Where are they now? Because a lot of people were wondering about this first 4-game stretch of theirs, and now they're 3-0 through this stretch. That's a bitch, dude.
No, they've been great. I have them top 5 in my power rankings, and I think they you could even argue could be higher. We talked about it before the season started. I said I really want to see how they played through these first 4 games because I thought they were a big test. I thought they should beat the Pats, and then it was okay. Can they win one of the next 3? Well, they've won 2 of them. So, and they might go for a clean sweep on Thursday. We'll see how it plays out. They get out.
Hey, listen. You say the power rankings. Let's just go talent by talent. Who's better, Miami or the Bengals?
Oh, I would the overall roster. Miami's got a better roster.
Right. Now, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So here's my full picture of the Dolphins. I think defensively they've got to be much better. Okay. Yeah. They have given up a ton of points to let's start New England because New England can't score a point on anybody. They're run by a special teams coordinator. Okay. Like the Ravens. Now, Lamar Jackson's having an unbelievable year, but they hung 38 points on Miami. Now, the Bills game's an interesting game. Because you look at it point-wise and go, well, they held them to 19, which, by the way, that's what matters. Like, you held them on the scoreboard to 19 points. Okay.
Can I give you something? As you're making that point, I want to enlighten you on something because you're right. But then to a certain extent, the defense actually does its job. Listen to this. They have allowed in the first half of games this year 59 points. Okay. In the second half, 18 points.
Yes, much better after halftime.
Exactly. Their first quarter, 3-7-7 in the 3 games. The second quarter is their bugaboo. 14-21-7.
Yep.
In the third quarter, 3-7-3. In the fourth quarter, 0-3-2. So while Lamar lit it up, he could only muster 3 points in the fourth quarter, right, and 7 in the third. So his 28 points came in the first half, and one of them was a special teams return, actually. So really, and I think that 7 was his run that he broke out, and I think that's what it was in the third quarter. And then this past week, 3 and 2, like you don't really
a lot of whatever.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But as a team, I'm saying and I'm not saying defense, just as a team, total points there. So it's strange. You're right. They are bending, but they're really not breaking. They're making the plays. Like you saw it, Josh Allen towards the end. That secondary stepped up all of a sudden and started knocking down passes and covering guys. And you're like, shit, they came up with the plays. So it's strange. You're right. You look at the stats and they look terrible. But then the fourth quarter stats, oh my God, it's like two in the fourth quarter.
It speaks to being well coached. You're better in the second half than you are in the first half. It also and the ability to adjust. It also speaks to conditioning. Okay. The Bills in that game, the Bills are in Buffalo, New York. Okay. Miami's in Miami. Like the humidity matters. Cramping, like the Bills were cramping like crazy in that game. They could not stay on the field. They were done.
That's not their fault. That would have happened to any team in the North.
Agreed. But my point is the Dolphins are ready for their surroundings. Okay. Yes. The Dolphins were prepared to deal with that heat. That heat's played a factor as long as the Dolphins have been a franchise. Okay. And you need to, it's the same when the Dolphins go to Buffalo in December, you got to be prepared for the snow and the cold and the wind and all the rest of it, right? That's part
Green Bay, we call it the frozen tundra.
Right. Yeah. You have to be able to take advantage of your elements if you have them, whether it's hot in September or it's cold in December. And the Dolphins are.
And by the way, Lori Lightfoot, are you listening?
Yeah.
Are you listening, sweetheart?
Don't get me
Chicago
started.
doesn't need a roof, sweetheart. They
No,
need the elements.
Minnesota playing in a dome is a travesty. But I mean, that is the dumbest thing. I don't get people like, well, the fans. It's just the hell with the fans. They're going to show up either way.
Yeah,
Put a coat on. Look,
yeah, put a damn coat on,
I
bro.
mean,
Create an advantage
it's
for your
it's so
team.
bad. If they ever put a roof over Arrowhead, I'll cry. But look, the point being, so the Dolphins are well conditioned. They're well coached. The other part of it is, look, everybody wants to point like, oh, well, Tua didn't even throw for 200 yards. Okay, fine. Tua executed what he was supposed to. And by the way, the best throw of that game was on 3rd and 22. And look, the Bills, everybody's like, well, they had secondary guys out. Okay, fine. They had good coverage. Like it wasn't perfect coverage, obviously. Waddle got behind them, but like that throw had to be a very good throw. If it's not right on him, it's broken up or it's intercepted. And Tua put it right on him, and it was good protection by the line.
The Craycraft touchdown was a dart that he
threw. Yes, great throw.
And let me tell you something. The throw where he got injured, where they pushed him back, that 3rd down throw, he was off balance and he zipped it in there, which is not his thing. He makes the throw like that 20 yards downfield off balance. That's not his thing. Okay, so that was a nice throw also.
He played well. And look, everybody will point to Buffalo at 500 yards. That's a lot of yards. I mean, it is what it is. But Buffalo also ran 90 plays. Like Buffalo, that's to me the bigger problem. But Buffalo ran. That is the one thing on Thursday I'm curious to see. We talked about Miami's conditioning. They were on the field defensively for 90 plays in very, very humid conditions. How do they respond on a short week? I think the offense will be fine. Defensively, how do they respond? But I thought, listen, the bottom line is they won. They won the game. Like that is in the NFL. That's nothing else matters. Did you win or did you lose? Right? Like everybody here at this point knows, even though I cover the league nationally. Yes, I grew up a Chiefs fan. They played the Chargers on week 2. Like Mahomes threw 2 balls that should have been picked off, but they weren't. The Chargers dropped the ball twice, and the Chiefs picked it off and ran 100 yards with it. Like that's football. You need to execute. The Bills, by the way, for as good as they are, did not execute late in either one of the halves. They executed horribly at the end of the first half. They executed badly at the end of the fourth quarter. They don't get out of bounds. They don't get themselves in position to get a field goal. That's part of it. The Dolphins executed well enough to win. Yardage is great. It means nothing if you don't execute. The Bills missed a field goal late in the game that they should have hit. All these things happen. The Dolphins made enough plays. Look, do I think if the Bills and the Dolphins played 10 times that the Bills probably win 6 of them? Yeah, probably. But they didn't win the other day. And to me, the Dolphins, I will say this. I came into the year thinking they were a borderline playoff team. They're definitely better than that. The Dolphins are clearly a team that's going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to be in the conversation in the AFC East. And let me also say real quick, the one thing I would be concerned about long-term if I'm a Bills fan, can you ever win a close game? The Bills have this.
I did not know that stat until after that game. That what are they like one? I think Josh Allen's like 1-7 in games under 6 points or some crap like that.
In their last 7 games, and Nick Wright, give him credit over at Fox Sports, he pulled this out. At least that's where I saw it. They're 0-7 in their last 7 games, decided by a score. Now the Bills have this tendency. Look, they're explosive and they can run away from you. But when they get into games where they have to play situational football, it becomes a major issue. I mean, let's talk about, look, last year in the playoffs, they play the Pats, they blow them out, right? I mean, everything goes right. They kill them.
They're front runners. Then
they played Kansas City and got into a game where they had to coach well and execute at the end of the game. They lost. Like that kind of stuff, that is one concern I have. And by the way, Miami on the flip side has shown they can execute in these very tight games against really good teams. It's not like they're executing against Houston. Okay, they're executing against Baltimore.
That's a big ass deficit in Baltimore, bro.
That stuff matters. Like when you can execute in the last 5 minutes of a close game against good teams, home or away, that's how you win playoff games. Like that's how you win divisions. Okay, that is the one thing. Like Buffalo is going to blow out teams that are bad, teams they match up well with. What happens? Like this week, I'm interested when they play Baltimore. Now, what happens in that game? You have to execute. If you can't do that, you've got a problem, no matter how talented you are. I give Miami a lot of credit. They got outgained, out first down, out time possession, all that stuff. But when they had to have it and when they had to execute, they did it repeatedly. That's a good team.
Yeah. Those defenses, man, there were a couple of drives of 20 plays and like 16 plays or 17 plays.
Yeah.
Too long ass drives.
Time in hot weather.
And they didn't end up getting the 7 points out of some of those, which was impressive. overall for them. The other thing that has developed in 3 weeks. Okay, so let's see. Tua's not tough enough. Well, that's not true.
Been fine.
Tua doesn't have a strong enough arm. Well, that's not true. Tua can't run a high-powered offense. Well, that's not true either. I think he leads the league in bombs and 20+ yard completions, or I think scores and everything. I think he's like number one in all those categories. So, and again, it's only 3 games. You got to keep doing it, but he's also come back in clutch moments too. On top of all of that, throwing some big time throws. He's not depending on, which will happen many times this year, that it's a 5-yard play to Waddle or Tyreek, and it's no. He's hitting people downfield in stride so they can continue making the big play. So, in your eyes, what are the detractors now have to say about Tua Tagovailoa?
Well, I think first of all, you've got to be honest about it. Like he, as you point out, like he's hit some deep balls. Now, yeah, the Ravens blew a couple coverages. We still throw it. Still hit them. I mean, and the Bills, I just talked about the throw to Waddle. That throw is perfect. I mean, you can't have a better throw than that. And by the way, credit to the offensive line for holding up there and giving them time to throw, because that's a long developing play.
He didn't have that last year, by the way, at all.
No. I think if people are going to detract, they're going to say kind of what you just said. Look, keep doing it, right? It's been 3 games. You got to keep doing it. Okay, fine. Then people will say, well, against the Bills, you only threw for whatever it was, like $186 or something. But to me, it's the totals, like yardage totals get overblown. Like Carson Wentz is throwing for a lot of yardage this year. Carson Wentz stinks. Okay, like that's fine. You know who's, I believe, 3rd in the league in yardage right now? Joe Flacco.
Right.
So what? Like Joe Flacco's throwing for more yards than Patrick Mahomes. You taking Joe Flacco? Like it's all about
2 weeks ago, I had Canes fans say, "Well, we moved the ball against Texas A&M." Yeah, but did you score?
You didn't score.
I don't give a shit. Look, I don't care if you have a 10-inch penis. Is it flaccid all the time? Well, it doesn't work. It doesn't help to have a 10-inch penis if it doesn't work, dude. Who cares?
Bottom line, like football is not baseball where there's 162 games and it's like, well, if we don't do this, then it's going to catch up to us over the course of 160. You win 17 games. Like if you win the game, that is now I'm not saying if you go in and you have issues, like of course you want to correct things and you want to get better at things but in football, there's no apologizing for winning a game. You win the game, especially a game against Buffalo. It's a divisional game against a team that's probably the best team in the division. You're not 2-0 in the division. Like if I'm the Dolphins, I don't care. I want to correct it. I don't want to give up 500 yards. I'm on the field for 90 plays. But as far as Tua is concerned, look, what else do you want him to do? He's distributing the ball. And for anybody who says, well, if Hill catches a 5-yard slant and goes 80 with it, well, that's not – okay, it's not an impressive play by Tua, but who gives a shit? You went 80 yards with the ball. Like, you think – look, I watched Tyreek Hill every play of his career. You know how many times – Mahomes would hit him with a 15-yard pass and he'd go 50 yards with it? I mean, what is it? You're going to denigrate Mahomes for it? He threw the ball to him. Like, that's why he's on the team. That's what you traded for him. So he gave him $120 million. I mean, if he was just going to catch the ball and fall over, you wouldn't have traded 5 draft picks for him. That's the whole idea of it. So to me, it's kind of like when people talk about like metrics on defense and they're like, well, this guy got 50 pressures. Okay, great. How many sacks did he have? Well, 2. I mean, it's better than not getting pressure, but like if you throw the ball away and it's 2nd and 10, that's a hell of a lot different than if you sack the guy and it's 2nd and 20.
Right.
It drives me nuts when people say, "Oh, pressure's as good if it's sacked." No, it's not, because you didn't get the guy down,
or you could have caused a fumble.
Right. Or you could have hit his arm. No, pressure is good, but it's not as good as a sack. And there are some guys who consistently turn pressure to sacks. Right, Von Miller typically being one of them. Like a guy like that, TJ Watt, it sacks. Like that, it matters. But in the end with Tua, look, if he's got Hill and he's got Waddle and the guy's wide open 8 yards down the field and it turns into a 30-yard gain, great. That's great. That's why you have these players. So look, I don't think it's fair to denigrate Tua. If you're going to get, like, to use your comparison we've used a lot in the show, if you're going to give Justin Herbert credit for putting on a magic show for 6-7 plays a game, but then they never win, okay,
right.
Like, Tua should get credit for being efficient, and they win.
And winning.
Like, that's the point.
Dude, he is now.
That's the point of winning. The point
He's
of
16-8.
football, the point of football is to win games. Like, and look, I think with Herbert, there's a lot of other stuff that factors in. They're not coached well. They're hurt. But the point is, listen, for as great as Justin Herbert can be at times, like, you got to win games. That's football. I mean, that is the point of playing football. You will never hear me denigrate a guy for winning games. And Tua right now is doing everything they're asking him to do. He's winning games.
By the way, he had shit talent for 2 years, and now he has great talent for 3 games. He's 16-8 after this past week.
He's been fine.
2-1. Okay. Herbert is 16-19.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And by the way, that stat that came out 2 weeks ago, Herbert at no point in his career has had a winning record, and Tua at every point in his career has had a winning record.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that. That's interesting. It's a good one. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay. Yeah. So that kind of when people say, "Oh, winning isn't a stat," you don't measure a quarterback. What? What?
Winning is kind of the point. Okay, like that's the whole. It's like there's how many games in his career did Brady have games where like for 3 quarters you'd be like, but then like the 4th quarter he just turns into God, and it's all of a sudden you're like, well, they won. I don't care that he's 18-32. They won the game. He completed 10 of 11.
My favorite is Brady dinks and dunks. What do you want him to do, bro?
So what? They win.
What do you want him to do? He's playing with a bunch of Oompa Loompas.
Yeah.
Okay. When you gave him Randy Moss, he threw it 80 yards downfield for you. Yeah, it was there.
Right.
But if you're playing with Oompa Loompas, what do you want him to do, bro? So he picks you apart and then he hits you with a big shot with Gronk. Oh, wow, his only big receiver.
Yeah.
It's like,
if it's
come on, dude, he's playing with Rashae Caldwell, and Wes Welker's fantastic, but he's an intermediate guy. Yeah, it's like, you're not Troy Brown. Just go look at all his receivers throughout Edelman, whatever. If they didn't catch it right from close yardage and then take off, that's the only way it was going to be a big ass play. Outside of that, he didn't have the guys downfield like monsters that he can throw to.
And they won a lot of games because
they won a lot of games.
Look, execution in football, like that's it. They won a lot of games. Doing what? Throwing the ball underneath, throwing a seam route to Gronkowski. By the way, a lot more quarterbacks would be better off if they did stuff like that more often. Everybody gets so enamored with like he's got to go down the field. He's got to go down the field. No. Look. Like if it's open, hit it. But if you got a guy, if it's 3rd and 4, you need 4. You don't need 40. Throw it underneath, get the easy completion. I mean, look at the Super Bowl that the Pats beat the Falcons in. How many catches did James White have in that game? Is it 12, 13?
Right. Yeah.
It's fine. He's open. Hit him. Let him run for 10 yards.
It's funny because the guy that was the GOAT and now the guy that is the GOAT, both GOATs, whether it's Montana or Brady,
the same way.
They played the same way. It was a whole bunch of short passes. He wasn't throwing a Rice 60 yards downfield. He was throwing a Rice 16 yards downfield, and Rice then made it a 60-yarder after that, and Taylor and whatever. But mostly it was all short passes because that's where Bill Walsh came from Paul Brown and that system. And he had Roger Craig and all that. And just go look at it. Go watch the history of the damn game. And you'll see that a bunch of those guys, that's why I laugh at Tua can't throw deep. First of all, he can throw deep. And second of all, that's only going to happen, a certain amount of times in a year and maybe a couple of times in a game. It's not that you're going to live off 70-yard passes, dude. Come on, bro. Let's not that's
no successful offense and no successful team. Like, go point out to me the team that's won a Super Bowl just throwing bombs down the field all game long. Like, that team doesn't exist. Like, even the 99 Rams, who might be the best offense I've ever seen compared to its era, okay? They had Marshall Faulk. Like, Faulk had like 1,000 yards receiving. And Bruce and Holt, it was a lot of intermediate routes, and they would take off up the field. That's it. I mean, that's how you need to play, especially now in this age where it's always these shell coverages, which, by the way, Miami's going to see more and more and more of, okay, with Hill and Waddle, right? These shell coverages, throw underneath, throw the ball. If you got a back that can catch, throw it to him. You got to, I'd like to even see the Dolphins play a little more Gesicki. Like, get it. If there's any argument I have, like, he's a good player. Get him on the field.
Excellent player.
Let him catch the ball 12 yards. And then let these Ferraris you have on the outside, as they've been doing, catch the ball and take off. Like, who cares if the ball travels in the air 8 yards or 80 yards if the guy goes 70 yards at the pass? Like, what the hell does it matter? Get the ball in their hands, let them cook.
And last year, people were like, "Oh, Waddle's only catches short passes. Look at Jamar Chase." And it's like, I kept explaining, the quarterback has no time for deep passes.
They had no chance.
Waddle's the only receiver they have. They can't wait for him down there. They got to give it to him right away so he can make plays. And sure enough, look at him now. Now he's in an offense where he can play like he was playing in Alabama. And by the way, for me, last year I was so impressed with Waddle because he showed me he can be another kind of receiver, that he can be that guy in tight spaces and tough catches and all that kind of stuff, which that's a completely different receiver that requires for you to do that kind of stuff. Now you've got other guys to do it, and now you can put them on the outside with Tyreek. I was actually more impressed with Waddle's season last year because I know he can do what he's doing now. That was already second nature to him. What he did last year, that showed me some serious toughness. All right, so what's the prediction? Cincinnati by 4 tomorrow. What does Matt Verderame say?
I think it's a really good game. I definitely think Miami's going to cover. I'm very torn. I'm going to say Cincy by a field goal only because I just worry about everything going on this week, the travel being disrupted, and then on top of that, the other reason I'm being honest, I just think the Bengals are desperate as hell. Like, they've got to win these games.
Well, they can't. Yeah, they lose their 1-3, bro.
If you're the Dolphins, look, man, I think the Dolphins, quite honestly, in a lot of ways, are a more talented team. It's a short week on the road, so I always think it's tough. And Cincinnati is so desperate. Like, you have to win. I mean, if you fall here, you're 1-3. By the way, do you know, I know over Football Outsiders, but which they do great work, by the way. They rank Cincinnati's schedule as the hardest the entire rest of the year going forward. They got a lot of hard games. So if you're the Bengals, like, this is obviously a hard game as well, but like, you got to win some of these games. And this is a short week at home. I'm worried about Tua being beat up a little bit. You know, he took some shots in that game. The defense was on the field for 90 plays. I could definitely see Miami winning. I think if Miami can win the turnover battle, even +1, I think they win. But I'll take the Bengals by a field goal, just being more desperate, short week at home, and Tua's beat up a little bit.
By the way, after the Bengals, Jets, Vikings, Steelers, Lions, Bears, Browns, Texans, Niners too, because who fears Jimmy Garoppolo? And then you get to the Chargers, Bills, Packers, Patriots, and then you end with the Jets. So this is after this game, they are going to be favored in a lot of the next few games.
They'll win probably. I mean, I don't know how many games just rolled off there, but 6 of those 7, something like that. Like, there'd be a game like every team has where they'll play some weird game. But
man, if they win this game, they are setting themselves up to have one hell of a record at the end of the year. Okay.
I think even no matter what happens, I think they're probably going to win 11, 12 games. Which, I mean, that's a pretty damn good record. In the AFC, in the AFC, you win 11, 12 games, you're a damn good team. I mean, you're talking at 11, 12 plus.
Yeah, but you win this one, you get the 10 days off to get, feeling good again.
They'll kill the Jets. So,
they're going to pound the Jets.
The Jets will get killed.
I'm with you. All right, tell them about Stacking the Box.
Okay, Stacking the Box. You can check it out every single Tuesday afternoon on YouTube. It is live, noon Eastern, 11 Central. We take any questions you have in the chat. Go over to the Stacking the Box channel and subscribe if you haven't already. We're like 50 people away from 5,000, so that would be good. And then also check out the column. It comes out every single Monday. I wrote about the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago. I led with Tyreek Hill. I have my quarterback rankings that come out every single Wednesday morning, so they're out live. I'm going to tweet them out in a minute. And I led with Tua last week, and Tua just kept moving up the board this week. So it's been a good time to be a Miami Dolphins fan.
Hell yeah, baby. Suffering for like 25 years.
You guys deserve it.
We need something, bro. We need something, man.
Yes.
Matt, much love, my brother. We'll catch up next week, my friend. Enjoy the football.
Stay safe, everybody. Take care.
You got it. There he is. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Always love talking football with that guy.
This is the Big O Show. This is the